Welcome back to the second part of my combat tutorial. Last week we went over the numbers, HP, armor, weapons, attack bonuses and saving throws. Today we will be going over the basics of running an encounter and how to play in an encounter yourself. This is fully aimed at new players and we'll go through all of the basics. Please do like and subscribe if you find any of this helpful. So before an encounter begins, you'll have one of two things, either a battle map in which you can look around the surroundings and see where this fight is about to happen, or a description of where you are and where your enemies are. These are the two methods, battle maps or theatre of the mind, and people disagree fiercely on which is better. I'll be focusing on battle maps in this walkthrough as there are things like ranges and areas of effect that are more specific in that method, but I will need to talk about theatre of the mind too. So for battle maps they will look something like this, with squares or sometimes hexes where the distance from one space to the next is 5 foot. This is because most melee attacks are 5 foot and all ranges are multiples of 5. If you are doing Theatre of the Mind, it's up to your DM to decide whether or not you are within range to do certain attacks. Notes to DMs though, make sure that you keep it fair in Theatre of the Mind, in that if your enemies can hit your players, then it is likely that your players can also hit them. The final thing to mention here is that you can interact with the environment, jump on that rock or swing off that tree. Interacting with the world makes it more feel alive around you, so don't feel you just need to walk around and complete your actions and abilities. So now that we have dealt with the environment, we can move on to the gameplay. So at the start of any encounter, the DM will simply ask you to roll initiative. This is a D20, a 20-sided die, plus your initiative modifier, which we calculated in the last video. Every creature in the fight will roll this, and the creature who rolls highest will go first, and so on down the initiative order. If two creatures tie, you roll another D20 with no bonuses, and the higher roller goes first and the lower roller goes second. A round of combat is everybody taking their turn and then returning to the top of the initiative order again. In game time this only takes 6 seconds, which limits to what you can do, but in reality you will have more than 6 seconds to make up your mind, so don't worry. It can be worth preparing what you want to do on the other people's turns, as otherwise when it gets back to you you're going to have to start thinking and that can just take a lot of time, so make sure you're prepared for when your turn comes around. On every creature's turn in combat, they will have a collection of things that they can do. These are normally split into 4 categories: movement, actions, bonus actions, and free actions. Movement relates to moving around the map. You can move a distance equal to your speed on your turn. You can also drop prone for no movement cost at all, but it then does take half your speed to stand back up. Dropping prone can be useful if someone is trying to hit you from far away, as it gives them disadvantage to hit, but it's not helpful if someone is up close, as it gives them advantage to hit you. Make sure that you are aware of how far you can move in a turn and how you can manipulate your environment to hide behind things or to try and avoid people's attacks. Moving on to actions, this is the largest collection of things that you can do, and it is the thing that takes up most of your turn. You can only do one of these things per action, and you only get one action per turn unless you have an ability or a spell on you that increases that, so just be mindful not to waste this action in your turn. The possible regular actions that you can take are attack, you can make a melee or ranged attack. You can dodge, use your action to dodge incoming attacks, giving other creatures disadvantage to hit you. You can help, which is helping an ally to do something, giving them advantage. You can dash, which means that you can use your action to run twice as far in your turn, effectively doubling your movement. You can shove another creature, which is making a strength check against their strength check to try and push them 5 feet away from you. And you can grapple, which makes a strength check against their strength check to try and hold them, setting their speed to 0 and enabling you to drag them around. In both of these cases, if you roll higher, you can then do this thing. Your speed is halved when you're grappling someone around you. You can also hide on your turn, making a stealth check to hide from other creatures. If you're successful, then you can get advantage on attacks from being hidden. Then you can also disengage, which means you'll use your action to try and run away without being hit. This is something we'll go on to later. And finally, you can ready an action, in which you describe a situation in which you want to use one of these other actions in the foreseeable round. This means that you then, when that thing happens, you are triggered and you are able to do that action. These are the main ones, however there are obviously abilities that you get from your classes and therefore you need to be aware of those. Some common things that your classes give you is to move some of these into your bonus actions, making it easier to grapple or shove, or maybe even casting spells with your action instead of doing one of these things. Bonus actions are the other things that you can do in your turn. There are fewer of these and these are dictated by your class mostly, but there is one thing that you can do if you are any class using your bonus action, and this is your offhand attack, which can be used after attacking with a light weapon to make a secondary attack with another one. Some of the class specific extras that you can use for your bonus action include dashing, disengaging or hiding as a bonus action. There are some spells that take a bonus action to cast, and there are some available abilities for things like monks and rangers and stuff like that which you can use your bonus action for. Free actions are the final thing that you can do in your turn. This normally means interacting with your environment in some way, and is sometimes called object interaction. This could be opening a door or picking something up, or sometimes pulling a lever. If you are a DM and you want one of these things to be a bit more challenging, you can introduce an ability check to complete it, like a strength check to pull that lever, and then you can turn that into a full action. This being separate from actions and bonus actions really encourages you to interact with the world around you and make your movements more interesting. Of course, if there's nothing you feel like doing, you don't need to use your free action on your turn. This goes the same for absolutely everything. If you don't want to use your action or your bonus action or even your movement, you don't have to. The final thing to mention though is you are able to speak on your turn as well, but remember that this turn of yours is only 6 seconds long, so you can't really say that much. It's also worth mentioning that some spells involve speaking, but it's up to your DM if that will stop your communication with your team when you are trying to cast those particular spells. The final thing that you do get the ability to do though is to react to other things that are happening. You get one reaction per round which can be taken at any point, including on your own turn. The main thing that you can do with your reaction is an opportunity attack, which is when you can make a single attack if another creature is about to move out of your range, often 5 foot for melee range. It will also take your reaction to resolve your readied action if you chose to do that on your turn. Once you have used your reaction once, you have to wait until the start of your turn to get it back again, so be careful not to use it too quickly. Last week I mentioned how to calculate your attack bonuses and damage, but I wanted to quickly touch on actually making attacks here. All weapon attacks will have a range, and so you need to check that that target is within range before you start the attack. You then roll a d20 plus your attack bonus calculated last week to try and hit. If you meet or beat their armor class, then you get a hit and you can roll damage. The same is true in reverse when an enemy attacks you. A final thing to mention here is that natural 1s and natural 20s are a thing. Natural 1s, when you roll a 1 on the d20, always miss regardless of the bonus and the target's AC. This represents the chance that you just whiff. Natural 20s on the other hand are called a critical hit and always hit, and deal double damage in terms of the number of dice rolled. I just quickly want to mention here that I will not be going over spells in today's tutorial, that is being saved for next week, so if you want to find out more about spells, stay tuned, subscribe, and you'll see that in a week's time. So now the encounter is up and running, and everybody is doing their thing. This will continue until either your characters roll down, or the enemies are defeated. This can happen either by dropping their HP to 0, or by making them surrender, or by some other means. If they do drop to 0 HP, then you get a choice. You can either end them, or simply knock them out. This can be a useful choice if you want to capture or interrogate one of them, or if you've just had enough of their antics and just want them gone. On the other hand, if you yourself drop to 0 HP, then you get a saving grace. Instead of immediately being killed, you get what is called a death saving throw. These are d20 rolls where you want to roll a 10 or higher to succeed. You roll one of these at the start of each turn where you are at 0 HP, and you try to get 3 successes. If you get 3 successes, then you become stable, which means you remain unconscious but will wake up in a few hours with 1 HP. The number of hours is decided by rolling a d4. If you get 3 failures though, you die outright, so you don't want that to happen. You can get critical successes and failures on this too, with a 1 counting as 2 failures instead of 1, and a 20 forcing you awake with 1 HP right there and then. This can lead to some dramatic moments. You also need to be careful when downed, as damage you can take will lead to you gaining a failure, and if someone crits on you, you gain 2 failures. After an encounter, you can try to rest to regain some of your HP and your expended abilities. If you rest for a full 8 hours and you're able to have some sleep, you can regain everything, but if you only have time to have a short rest, then you can roll a number of your hit dice up to your level and regain that much HP. All of your other abilities don't come back unless they specifically state that they return on a short rest.